Okay, are we ready? You guys ready? All right. I'm going to let the last few people get some drinks, but while they do that, I just want to remind everybody a couple of things. First of all, this is our 23rd show. 23rd show. So we've been doing this for 23 months. Next month is our 2-year anniversary. So please come out for that. We're going to have some great stories, some of the best of stories, some people that you've seen tonight, and some other people will be coming back up to tell their amazing stories. So I'd love you guys to do that. You're right in time. What else do I want to tell you? So we did not do a show last month because my wife and I were doing a 1-month-long camper van trip around the country. We did 5,000 miles and saw some amazing sights, including hiking up Mount St. Helens and to the top, which was, imagine hiking through some trees and then hiking up some rocks and then climbing a double black diamond ski slope. So she loved it. I did it, but I didn't love it. But we had an amazing trip, and I remember some of you probably recall that we were dealing with some housing issues. We have a house. We've moved in. And I also want to say that, I'll come back to that. But what I also want to tell you about is this event. So this is called the FLY, stands for Factual Life Yarns. It is modeled after the MOTH, which some of you have probably heard of. And it's an homage to their work. We love to do it here. And the big thing is we're here for community, right? Everybody comes out here and tells their stories and shares their secrets. I've got some great secrets. They share their secrets, and it's great. It's a great way to come together, especially in the time when we are really pulled apart by our administration and other things. So I just want to say thank you all for coming, and we're about to start. You guys good? Yeah! What else do I want to tell you? Okay. What's that? Oh yeah, sure. Christine says turn off your cell phones. You just quiet them down. They don't have it ring in the middle of the story. And then what else? Tonight's theme is payback. Now I had a great payback story. I mean, I was ready. I actually came up with the theme because I had a great story that I was going to do, and I run the show so I can do that. And it was a great story, and I cannot tell it for legal reasons. And you will. One thing that I have learned in doing this for 23 months is that all your life's experiences, good or bad, or incredibly stressful, which is what mine was like, will be a good story someday for the FLY. So one day you will hear the story of our epic adventure with moving out of our house and selling it. But that won't be tonight. So what else do I want to tell you? I think that's it. We have 8 wonderful storytellers. Oh, I remember what I want to tell you. Is that it takes a lot of courage to come up here and tell stories. Some people are bearing their souls and telling their secrets and being up here on stage talking is really hard. So I want everybody to sort of give a big round of applause for every storyteller when they come up. Yeah. So let me get started here. All right, there we go. All right, so this is me. I'm Gary. Okay. So again, I had a story I was going to tell, but I'm not going to tell that one. And that was about clear, full-on payback. But this one is more about karmic payback, because I think I must have done something in a previous life, or maybe to my mother when I was a kid, and it's coming back to me in spades. So I have 3 kids, and they're all wonderful, amazing kids, and they're all in college, all at the same time, which is so great. They all have ADD, but they're amazing because they've been able to cope, develop strategies to deal with it, and they've all been incredibly successful, and I'm so proud of them. My middle son, Kyle, has done an amazing job turning his ADD into a magical power. It facilitates his ability to somehow insert himself just at the wrong time with an immediate need. Or he also has the ability to take what his problem is, some problem that he's having, and turn it into our problem because it involves money that I will lose if I don't deal with it. So just as an example, Kyle uses this power. He used it particularly in high school. Because in high school, what he did was he managed to he decided he wasn't going to communicate with us in any way. So he wouldn't respond to texts or emails or voicemails. He would forget immediately upon us telling him things. So he would just kind of run his life without communication with us. And so it turned into things that could be an issue. And typically what would happen is he would call us, usually to ask for money, for food, for something, and he would call us and we would say, oh, Kyle, by the way, did you go to that doctor, dentist, tutoring appointment, which is non-cancelable, non-refundable? And the answer was always, I didn't go, I forgot to go, I can't go, or I'm not going. And what was so great about that was that it always ended up with us scrambling to figure out a way of trying to like call the people and say, please, I'm so sorry, tutor, doctor, is there any way we can get a forgiveness for this thing happening? And my favorite part was that Kyle would always say to us afterward, what's the big deal? You would have paid the $225 anyway. So he also managed to, again, because he didn't pay attention, when I had something that I communicated to the whole family, I would make sure that everybody knew. So some of you know I run focus groups for a living. So I do a lot of focus groups online. It's like a Zoom call. I'm having conversation with 6 or 7 people. I have the client who's listening in and they're observing, and they have 6 or 7 people listening in. And Kyle came to my office one day and he starts pounding on the outside door of my building. And I hear him, but I can't because I'm talking to people and they're listening to me and I'm asking them questions, so I don't respond. So he stops knocking and I'm like, okay, good, he's figured it out. No, he decides to FaceTime me, which turns my computer off because like when you're having a Zoom call and a FaceTime at the same time, everything's ringing and I'm trying to turn it off and finally disable it and it stops. I'm like, okay, good. And then he goes outside my second floor window and he comes up on below and he goes, Dad! 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 And then he opens the car door and starts beeping his horn. So I finally have to say, I'm so sorry, and I mute and pause and turn the camera off, and I go to the window and I calmly communicate to him, I'm unable to talk with you at this moment, Kyle. Could you please stop doing that? I think he needed money. Anyway, this story isn't about that. It's about, because when he went off to college, I mean, he's grown so much. He's a sophomore in college, and he's really come out into his own. He answers his calls. He calls us. He says, I love you. It's so wonderful. But he still retains some of that magical power. We had a black tie event we were going to. It was a wedding of our niece this past October. We all had to get tuxes, and Kyle, like everybody else, had to get tuxes. So Cody, my oldest, was just going to buy a suit because he wanted a black suit. My daughter Issa was going to get a dress. She got a beautiful dress. Kyle was going to rent a tux. So I brought him in September, right before he went to school, to the local place in Corte Madera, and we got him fitted. But he said to me, I am not going to rent from here because they screwed up my prom thing and my prom tux, and it didn't look good. It didn't fit right. I'm not going to do that. I said, okay, fine. He said, well, how are you going to do it? He said, I'm going to rent in Denver. And that's totally cool. It's like, you're going to rent in Denver where you go to school. That's great. You can go ahead and do that. Probably will save you money because it's expensive out here and it'll be cheaper there. Great. So, but what ended up happening, so he goes off to school. And what I decided to do is I've had a tux for, I think it's a 40-year-old tux, because it was my dad's tux, and then he gave it to me, and I wore it for a long time, but like the sleeves were too short, and it was getting kind of ratty, and I figured, okay, it's time for me to get one. So I went out and I looked around, and somehow I got put onto this Amazon thing where it was like this really inexpensive tux that everybody got incredible reviews. So I got one. And I ordered one for him and sent it to him because I know Kyle and I know he's not going to get around to doing this thing that I want him to do. So so I sent it to him, and then the conversation, I'm going to try to shorten it, but the conversation went something like this. Kyle, did you get the tux? No. Are you sure Amazon says you got it? I can't find it. Okay, will you look for it? Half an hour later, he calls me. Oh yeah, it was in my friend's room. Okay, you going to try that on? Yeah, I'll try it on. But I'm not going to use that tux. I want to rent a tux. Okay, great, go for it, rent a tux. Call him back a week later. Kyle, have you tried on the tux? No. Have you rented the tux? No. I don't know where to go. I said, well, I thought you said you had a friend who knew where to get a tux. He said, oh yeah, he doesn't know. He doesn't remember where he went. Quickly look online. Okay, Kyle, here's some 3 places. You need to go there. Great, I will go. Okay. So I said, listen, Kyle, I just don't want this to be a problem. Okay, I don't want to be a problem. I don't want this to stress me out. Just do it for me. Just get it done. Okay, Dad, I will. Call him back in a couple of weeks. Kyle, have you tried on the tux? No. Have you rented the tux? No, I'm too busy. I can't do it. I'm like, try on the tux, please, now. He tries on the tux, and I said, listen, just so you know, when you try that tux on, it's not going to fit you. It's off the rack, so you're going to have to get the legs done. You're going to have to get the suit fixed, whatever. You're going to have to do that. I don't want this to be a problem. It won't be a problem, Dad. Tries it on. It's too long, Dad. I know, it's too long. The pants are too long because they need to get altered. And he said, well, the jacket doesn't fit. I'm like, I know. He said, I do not want to use this tux. I'm like, Kyle, you have a week. He's like, okay, I'll figure it out. It's Thursday. We're leaving on Friday for the wedding. I call him up. Kyle, did you try the tux on? Yeah, it doesn't fit me. I'm like, I know it doesn't fit you. He says, okay. I said, Kyle, you need to get it altered. He said, where would I go? I'm like, ugh. So I rage, Google, and I find a place, and I say, I'm going to give you some responsibility. You are going to go and call this place. He calls the place up, and he called me back. He said, yeah, they can do it. I said, how much are they going to charge you? He said, I don't know. So I call the place up, and I'm like, hey, how much are you going to charge me? They said, well, it's a rush job, so it's going to be more than the price of the tux. So I said, no, I'm not doing that. And I found a place that was a block away. It was a dry cleaner that did alterations, and I said, Kyle, you need to go to this place. It's a block from your frat house. You just go there, get your tux, you're good. Get it all set up. He goes, okay. Problem is, Dad, I don't know where the jacket is. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know where the jacket is? And he's like, oh, yeah, somebody borrowed it. I don't know who it was. I can't find it. I'm like, Kyle, you have an hour and a half before they close. You need to go. You leaving tomorrow. He said, okay, I'll find it. He calls me back a half hour. I found it. I'm like, good. Run to the dry cleaner. So he runs to the dry cleaner. I get a call 2 hours later, and he goes, yeah, they fixed it, Dad, no problem. So, okay, we're good. We're good. He's got his stuff. And why does it stress me out so much? He would just look silly, not me, but it's no problem. He stressed me out. Okay, we're good. He's got a tux. So he calls me the day of, I'm leaving in an hour and a half for the wedding, and he says, oh, Dad, by the way, I don't have a tux shirt. So I went to Nordstrom's, which was the only store that was open that I could do quickly, and the tux shirt cost more than the tux. Anyway, kids teach you patience, but karmic justice, karmic payback is a bitch, and it costs you money. Anyway, thank you. Okay. All right, I don't know who's next. There we go. All right. Oh, so wait. Okay, wait. I just want to show you. Look how good-looking he is in this tux. Let me just show you. Whoops. I mean, he's that one over there. That's my family. But it's like he looks great, right? Yeah. That shirt was very expensive. Oh, and by the way, he stained the shirt and then lost it. Okay. Anyway, yeah. That's my boy. All right. Our next storyteller tonight is Dave. Oh, it's Dave. All right, let's give a big hand for Dave, everybody. Yeah. Do you have notes there, Dave?
I do.
Okay, all right.
Choose carefully.
Okay. Oh, these are your secrets?
No, you can take them both.
Okay, all right. That's
I would recommend choosing carefully.
Okay.
Whew. Okay. Dude, this is way too fast, man. I was like all into your story, and my oldest is off to college in a few months, and I'm like, yeah, it's like that. Okay, so I'm actually going to do a very big rewind. We're going to go back to 1999, Y2K-ish, and I'm spending my time parking cars as a valet here, company in Marin, and the first job is like the big job in San Francisco. We were parking cars for Boulevard Restaurant down at the foot of Market Street, and then they had Harry Denton's Lounge down the street and all that, whatever. But as I punched the clock there and got some merit points, I wound up getting one of the cool shifts, which was at the Buckeye Roadhouse down here, right? So now I don't have to go into the city anymore, and it's just me and one other guy, and we park the cars, we split the money, this is a much better deal, off we go. And then over time, took a while, but I got into like kind of the elite tier of parking cars here in Marin County, which was Marin Joe's. And first off, like, RIP Marin Joe's, right? Like, I can't believe it. But So Marin Joe's was a thing for decades, and so Y2K, they opened early, they were busy, they stayed late. This was like the ultimate gig for being a valet because the lot was so small that you just ran it with one person. And actually, you probably needed two people, but it's like, if you're good and you can handle it, you make a shit ton of money, so you should just do it that way. And it worked really, really well. And it is very difficult. It's very difficult. You are basically living in a Tetris game where the first block that comes in is like a giant Ford F-250, and the next block that comes in is like a Bentley convertible. And you have to fit all these things into the blocks, into the spaces that you have, and you have to do it in a hurry because more blocks are coming in. And if you back up on the street, Cordovator police would come by and like flash the sirens and be annoying and yell at you. So I made it to there, and I made it on merit, and you have to you get very in the game. Like you're very busy, and you just have to move the cars so that the driveway is clear. That is the name of the game, and then as the cars go away, you wind up like money starts just really flowing into your pocket, and it's really great. So in the middle of one of these, it was a lunch shift. Am I forgetting anything? Tetris? Yeah, so in the middle of this lunch shift, at one point, a car came in, and it happened to be a Volkswagen bus. Okay, whatever, fine. I need this car to go from here over there. The thing is, like, when I look back on this story, it is true that of all the cars I hopped in and out of as a valet, I had never driven a Volkswagen bus. And the significance of that is, for anyone that's driven a Volkswagen bus, like you're sitting so far forward, you are driving the bus. The steering wheel's not up here, steering wheel's like here, pedals are like down here. It's like windshield, front bumper, and your feet. Your feet are in front of the front wheels. So when I was like, I need this car to go over here, I was like, this is great, this is what I need, this is gonna be fine. And I noticed as I pulled into the spot, there was like this like tension in the vehicle that I didn't expect. There was no sound. It's like, well, that feels a little weird. And so when I got out, as I was walking back around, I looked around and I'm like, oh, that was the sensation of creasing this Volkswagen bus from tip to tail all the way down. I'm like, but you know what else? I was really busy, and there were cars piling up in the driveway, so like I just kept moving, and at the same time, I'm like, I can't believe I did that. Like this whole time, like one car has never touched another. And and it was busy. It was busy for a while. So by the time I got a break, like, I don't know, 45 minutes later, as I got a little bit of a break, I dashed into the manager's office, which was Paul, who was the daytime brother. And then in the evening, the other brother, Ralph, ran the evening show. And they ran it for the family, right? This was a family operation. So I go into Paul's office and I'm like, dude, you need to come see. Like I probably didn't have good words. And so he came out and he looked at it, he's like, oh, you really did? I'm like, yeah. I did not botch this halfway. I botched this like fully and entirely. And so I'm like, look, at this point, like the guy's about to come out. Like he's gonna come back out soon. He's like, look. I mean, we have insurance on this. Just here's my card. Give the guy my card. Tell him it's gonna be okay. We're gonna figure it out. And I'm like, okay, thanks. And so sure enough, guy comes out. I pull the car up, and like, I gotta say, the guy stayed cool enough. I think I owned it. And I fell on my sword so thoroughly and completely that he actually could not beat me up about it anymore. And I gave him Paul's card, and I'm like, we're gonna fix it. It's gonna be okay. So he drove away. And probably like a week goes by before I come back to that day shift again. And I go and I talk to Paul. And I'm like, so what's the deal? He's like, well, whatever. We're gonna have to fix it. And by the way, our deductible is $2,000. And I'm like, oh. It's a lot of pain, right? And so he's like, look, I'll do this. I'll split it with you. Like, you pay $1,000, I'll pay $1,000. It's like, we'll do it this way. Like, just bring me $200 at a time. Just when you get $200 together, if it's a couple weeks, 3 weeks, whatever, just every time you get $200 together, bring me $200. 5 times, we'll call it good. I'm like, you know what? I will take the deal. That's great. Like, this gig is very good. And so I'm like, I can do this, it's fine. He's not throwing me out, great. So a week or two goes by, I pull the money together, I come in and I show up early for my day shift, and I walk into Paul's office and pull the money. I'm like, hey, I got $200 here. And he's like, just hold on to it. I'm like, what do you mean hold on to it? He's like, look, I already paid the deductible. Like, I don't want your money. I'm like, but I don't get it. Like, we have a deal. He's like, no. The deal was, I just wanted to know if you were actually going to show up and pull the money out of your pocket and pay me. Right? He said, most people, when you give them this deal, they squirm around and they disappear and they don't show up. And I just wanted to know if you were going to show up. I'm like, wow. Yeah. So it's a story of payback without the payback. And it's the most valuable one. Like, I'm still holding it, right? It's so good. So, I don't know. Don't give up. I don't know. There you go. Do the right thing. Okay. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Well done. Awesome. That's Dave, everybody. Dave. So let's just touch a little bit on Marin Joe's, right? It's funny because my friend Scott over here worked at Marin Joe's when he was, how old were you? 24. We went there, we have a poker group, we go out for dinner, everybody's birthday, we go out for dinner, and sometimes we go to Marin Joe's, and we'd go to Marin Joe's, and we'd go there, and these guys who had been working in there since Scott was 24 would be like, hey, Scott. It's like, oh my God, they're still there. Wearing the same tuxedo and the same, that they've been wearing the whole time. Anyway, I thought it was funny. I guess it was just me. All right, well, you know what? Fine. Then I'm going to read a secret, if you can be that way. I got one secret here. I'm just going to start with because it made me laugh right off the bat. I'm going to just get my glasses, which are in my hand. All right. You do not have to own up to this one. Please don't, actually. 6th grade summer camp, raided neighboring camp, ate all of their candy. Middle of the night, shit my pants. Thank you for sharing that one. All right, who do we have next? Alec. Okay, I guess you're the next. So let's give Alec a big, warm welcome. Alec saw the poster and called me a couple of days ago, and we've been working on his story, and we're really excited to have him here. Everybody, big hand for Alec, everybody.
It's okay to be sad. I get it, but you really can take all this with you. Those were the words of my camp counselor in 1972, 54 years ago, as I was getting on the bus to head back home. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, and summer camp was a bit of a rite of passage for kids like me. And I was fortunate to go to Camp Minnewanka in Stony Lake, Michigan. It was a slice of heaven, beautiful corner of the world, trees and lakes and sand dunes. Every now and then I bust out and sang the camp theme song, on the sand dunes of Minnewanka. I'll stop and spare you. But for me, and I think for many kids, camp was not just about fun and adventure. It was also a chance to reinvent yourself. Nobody knew you. You could start over. So if you were small and shy and maybe not that athletic or confident, it was a chance to reboot. And that's what Camp Minnewanka was for me. And I'll always be thankful. There was a legendary and beloved camp counselor, Bill Morris, and he happened to be my camp counselor and my hero. He played college basketball, my dream, for Albion College in Michigan. I don't think they were in the Final Four last year. But what I remember most about Bill is that he really saw everyone. He saw strengths, opportunities to grow, opportunities to shine. Whether you were a jock or musical or sort of a geeky kid or a bit of a dorky kid from St. Louis, and that was me, he saw opportunities and potential in everyone. And the gift he gave to me was this: take risks, try new things, don't be afraid to fail, don't be afraid to be vulnerable. I really appreciate those lessons and those gifts. Summer camp was all about swimming, hiking, music, playing sports, and doing something called running the ridge, which was sneaking out of the cabin in the middle of the night to meet girls on the shore of Lake Michigan. For some reason, the girls never seemed to show up. And Bill looked the other way when we snuck out of the cabin in the middle of the night. There might be a lesson there too. But in 1972, he tapped me on the shoulder and he said, I want you to be George McGovern in the mock presidential election. For those of you under 60, ask your parents who George McGovern is. But it was my moment to shine, and I took it seriously, and I loved it. And I did a little better than the real George McGovern. There are some people over 60 here tonight who only won one state. Richard Nixon won the rest. And just for the record, Shirley Chisholm won the mock presidential election. You can ask your parents about her as well. Alas, after 6 weeks, the summer session came to an end, and I just couldn't believe summer camp was over, and I had to wait a whole year to come back to Camp Minnewanka. I got on the bus to head home, and then I remembered I hadn't said goodbye to Bill. So I hopped off the bus, and I literally ran around the campus looking for him. My eyes were very moist. And I found him, and I thanked him, and he said, it's okay to be sad, but you really can take this with you. Leadership and taking risks, take it with you. And I like to think I did. Many years later, in my 50s, I tracked him down through the camp office. And over email, I had a chance to thank him for believing in me and for believing in all his campers. He didn't remember me. He sort of pretended to, but it was a sweet and special moment. And little did he know that in the spirit of paying it forward or paying him back, when I was a teacher in San Francisco, another teacher and I launched Aim High, which is a middle school program for kids with limited opportunities and unlimited potential. And Aim High is chock full of project-based learning and activities and art and music. But what we really leaned into was creating a community that's safe and nurturing for kids, where kids are seen and believed in. In other words, Bill Morris was never far from my mind. At the end of one of those early summers of Aim High, we had our graduation day and our celebration day on a Saturday in August. It's a joyful, festive day for kids and families. And I have a very vivid memory of a student named Lester. He'd been part of Aim High for 3 summers, and he graduated that day. He just loved Aim High. And when the ceremony was over, a bunch of teachers and I were cleaning up for a couple of hours, and Lester stuck around to help out. And he stayed, and he stayed, and he stayed. He just couldn't bring himself to leave. And I mean, hey, like, I get it. I know how he feels. But finally, I had to lock the building and send him home. And I saw him at the bus stop, and I picked him up and gave him a ride home. And his eyes were a little moist. And it dawned on me what Bill Morris had meant to me. Perhaps I meant that to Lester. I saw him and believed in him. So I dropped him off at home and I gave him a hug. And I said, it's okay to be sad, but you really can take all this with you. And I'd like to think he did. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. That was fun. I appreciate your help.
That was really great. All right. Wow, that was a great story. That's Alec, everybody. So the person who just walked in just a minute ago back there is my son, Cody, and his girlfriend, Liv. Big hand for those guys. Cody just drove up from San Luis Obispo, and he's coming here to stay the weekend with us, and he missed my story. Thanks a lot, Cody. That's all right. All good. Thank you for coming. Once again, another great hand for Alec. That was such a wonderful story. There's some chairs in the other room, Code, if you need to grab them there. Yeah, so, but it's funny, I'm sure we all have camp stories. Like, I remember my camp song, and I just want to tell you a traumatic event, just real quick, I'm just going to throw this out there. My traumatic camp experience was that I was like, I don't know, 10 or whatever, and my sister had a camp that she loved, and this was the boys' camp version of that, and they were like sister and brother camps, and I went to the camp, and I was going to love it as much as she did, and I did not. Because the thing that was the most traumatic for me was that the bathroom was just 8 toilets in a row. No stalls, so you hand the toilet paper down. Oh, do you have a toilet? Sure, and they hand it down. And I think I went to the bathroom the whole summer. Anyway, so, all right, well, we have one more storyteller before the break. I think it's Christine, but I don't remember for sure. Well, it's a surprise to all of us. And yes. Oh, did it go away? Come on. Okay. All right. So we have Christine, everybody. Everyone give a big hand for Christine. You put that on
You want me to, wait,
Just clip it on.
it's dark and I don't have my glasses.
There we go.
Is that all right? Is that all right? Yeah, thanks. What fun.
Okay. Christine, everybody.
Before I begin, I want to give a thank you so much to Gary for putting this together, and his family and all the people who put the chairs out and put this community together. I'm just so grateful to see you all here, and I hope we do a whole lot more. Yeah. So here we go. I am someone who has psychic dreams. I have psychic dreams, and they are all true. And what they look like when I have a psychic dream is, for example, I knew my sister in Berlin was in trouble, and I had visions of her being in trouble. I knew when my father was going to die, and I had a vision of that. I knew when an ex-boyfriend coked out and died in his home in Studio City. And I have these dreams, and many times the person who shows up is in, as though it were a summer day, and they're smiling. And I find that kind of interesting that the dead people show up in the summertime looking like they're smiling. But what I usually do when this happens is I make a phone call to whomever it is that I have a dream about and find out how they're doing. And so this dream, I had a psychic dream about my dear friend Tracy. And of course, the first thing I did the following morning was to try and track her down. Now, Tracy is the kind of gal who has my house keys and takes care of my plants when I'm away. She's a plant person, so right away, she's better than most people. If anybody who can keep my plants alive, Allah be praised. But she's one of these people that has a huge sense of humor, ironic sense of humor, and you go into her house widely generous, and you go away feeling better than when you arrived. That's the kind of friend Tracy is. So, of course, I started to call her. And the home phone was some kind of weird voicemail. But her cell phone was disconnected. Her office phone was no longer in service. Any and all texts and emails were bouncing back. There was no more social platforms for her. So I took a risk, and I left a voicemail on this weird home line mechanized thing. And I said, "This is Christine Robinson. I'm looking for my friend Tracy. If you know where she is and can deliver this message, let her know I'm dreaming about her. Let her know I'm seeing her in the sun, as though it were a warm, sunny day. And I haven't seen her in a while, and of course I'm concerned. Let her know I love her. Let her know I miss her. And let her know I support her wherever she is, and please give her the message to call me." I didn't hear from her, and the weeks start to go by. That was in the fall. Come December 24th, I'm in trouble. It's Christmas Eve day, and I'm working as a temp. And those of you who have worked as a temp, you know you don't make much money. It's usually really boring work. And for me, the temp work was in San Francisco, so I had to take the number 4 bus, which is an hour-long, rattly bus to get to Sacramento and Sansom. So I'm down in the financial district. But I'm on my last temp job, and I have no money. There's no more temp jobs because everybody's going away until January. And I'm at the end of my rope. And right about then, I get a phone call from an ex-boyfriend who decides to wish me Merry Christmas and let me know how he's been doing for the last 20 years. Well, when I knew him 20 years previous, he was an inventor for Mercedes-Benz. So over the 20 years, he's been rising in the echelons of Mercedes-Benz. So he's got this great story about skiing in Switzerland and a home in the Hamptons, and he's got a brand new Mercedes every year, and the wife has a brand new Mercedes, the dog has a brand new Mercedes. Everybody's in a frickin' Mercedes land in Long Island, and I'm like, I want to die. The more he talked, the smaller I got. And then, of course, up comes the monkey mind. You could have married him, you know. You could have been Mrs. Mercedes with a brand new Mercedes. Look at where you are now in the dump, you know. And I'm like, oh, shut up. So I get on the number 4 bus. Oh, and by the way, it's winter time in San Francisco. So it's cold and rainy, and I'm broke, and it's just like one of these Charles Dickens stories. All I needed was Tiny Tim someplace. So I get home to my cold, dark apartment, and I see a red light flashing as my voicemail. Remember, answering service boxes? Well, mine had a red light on it, and my way of consoling myself was at least it's not a cop, right? I mean, I was really morally bankrupt by the time I got home. And it's a red light, and it's a message from Tracy. And here's what she had to say. She said, "Christine, you and I must have some kind of connection for you to be dreaming of me the way you do. Your message was delivered to me by my now ex-husband as I went into rehab. That's why I couldn't call you back. I've been locked up all this time. And thanks to my alcoholism and my drinking, I lost my husband, I lost my kids, I lost my home, I lost my job. I was at the end of my rope when your message of love and hope came through as I was entering the doors. That's what got me through all these weeks, Christine. They're going to let me out in a couple of days, and I'm going to need a friend. I'm so glad it's you, Christine. God bless you, Christine." And even now, as I remember that cold, dark night in that cold, dark room, and I get this message, and it was like all of a sudden my life took on new meaning. All of a sudden I wouldn't trade my life to be Mrs. Mercedes for anything. I was so happy to be me and that I made a difference in somebody's life that I so love so much. But here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, is I'm calling Tracy when she needed it the most. And I didn't know it because she's in rehab, right? And she's calling me from rehab with her message when I needed it most. And neither one of us knew that we were in trouble, you see. So as I'm holding both stories in the cold, dark night, I began to see how they began to coalesce and how deeply interconnected we are. We don't need the phones, and we just need to be conscious of how much we love one another and reach out when we have those dreams, because this came together in ways I could never have dreamed.
Christine, everybody, Christine. Such a nice story. Okay, we're gonna have a little break. We're gonna there's a bathroom back there, there's drinks on the side there, we'll turn some lights on, it's bright, it's either bright or dark, those are our two options here. So take a few minutes and I'll tell you when we're ready to go. All right, go on, have a break. Thanks, everybody. So again, I think right over there, there's a mailing list, so please sign up for the mailing list. If you're not, it'll be by the front table, so don't forget to do that. So we would get announcements about our upcoming shows and everything, that would be great. So we're gonna start right off the bat. I don't remember who's first. So let's do that. Let's get our, it's gonna be, so again, I think right over there, there's a mailing list, so please sign up for the mailing list. If you're not, it'll be by the front table, so don't forget to do that. So we would get announcements about our upcoming shows and everything, that would be great. So we're gonna start right off the bat. I don't remember who's first. So let's do that. Let's get our, it's gonna be Peter. Let's go, Peter. Ready? Peter was late because he tried pizza next door. Anyway, all right, we'll let it slide. Right into the mic. All right, Peter, everybody.
I've been around white-collar fraud long enough to know a bit about karma, which is to say that if you cheat somebody, it's eventually going to come back to bite you. As a journalist covering legal affairs for decades, I've worked on a lot of stories about fraudsters. Bernie Madoff, Elizabeth Holmes, Sam Bankman-Fried, and they all pretty much go the same way. They think they're going to get away with something, and it ends up catching up with them, and they have to face the music. Crimes like these, stories like these, about comeuppance are really kind of my stock in trade. But there was one caper from about 3 decades ago that I didn't report on because I wasn't on the beat at the time. But it's fascinating to me because it involves a member of my family, albeit somebody wearing the white hat. You probably haven't heard of Crazy Eddie if you aren't at least 50 years old and you weren't living in the New York City area in the 1970s or 80s. But I checked both of those boxes, and for me, Crazy Eddie was a household name. The Crazy Eddie commercials were a staple of my teen years watching TV. and they were every bit as annoying as they were memorable. I'm just going to give you a little taste.
It's crazy ain't greatest stereos they'll ever get anything and everything in stereo. Fucking get them all now. You're in crazy ain't greatest stereos they'll ever. Crazy ain't, his prices are insane.
Yeah, pretty obnoxious. But it was also genius. Crazy Eddie, it was reported at the time, actually had more name recognition than the mayor of New York, Ed Koch. But as genius as the advertising was, it turned out that the man behind the business, Eddie Anwar, was a crook. And the person most responsible for his downfall and eventual imprisonment was my first cousin, Jane. Jane, who is a few years older than me, started her path after law school the same way my father did, working for the federal government as a lawyer, rooting out fraud. And Jane worked for the U.S. Attorney's Office in New Jersey. At some point in the late 1980s, Eddie Anwar, when he was being investigated by Jane's office, fled to Israel and then was apprehended and extradited back to face charges. And the U.S. Attorney, Jane's boss at the time, the U.S. Attorney of New Jersey, took to calling Eddie the Darth Vader of retail. When it came time for his trial, Jane put together a case that convinced a jury that he had defrauded investors of $120 million. A big part of his scheme was that his business got a lot of its customers to pay in cash, and they skimmed the sales tax and kept the money. But then on the reverse end of the scheme, this is of course after the company had gone public, they counted the sales tax as revenue and inflated the income. So it was a pretty complicated set of interlocking frauds, but he had a creative defense. He argued that there was so much toxic infighting among his family members who also worked for the business that they couldn't possibly have pulled off this fraud because they couldn't possibly all be on the same page. And one anecdote of that dysfunction was that Eddie had a mistress, and he was cheating on his wife Debbie with another woman named Debbie. And she was known among family members as Debbie II. But in the end, the defense didn't work. In fact, not only was Eddie convicted by the jury, but 2 of his brothers were also prosecuted, as well as 2 of his cousins and his nephew. In the end, Jane put Eddie away for a prison term of almost 8 years. And he eventually got out, and he died in 2016. If I think back to my own early career choices, I could have gone down that path as well, and I chose instead to be a professional observer rather than a participant in the legal system. And I think I've over the years come to terms with that as being the right calling for me. I think what journalists do is important as far as educating and entertaining our audience. But I really hold my cousin Jane in high esteem because she did this for all the right reasons. You see, the piece of it that I didn't learn until recently about why she became a prosecutor was that 2 of her own family members had been scammed by fraudsters when she was growing up. Her grandmother, who lived out her final years in southern Florida as a widow, was ripped off by her certified public accountant and by her home health care aides. And Jane's father, who was an architect, had a business partner who embezzled from their company to support his gambling and addiction habit. So Jane took it upon herself to pursue a career in law enforcement, and in the end, she was all about avenging the injustices that had been perpetrated on her own family members. And so when I finally learned that piece of the story, it really made a lot of sense to me. And I will always remember cousin Jane as the woman who took down the Darth Vader of retail.
Yeah.
So, just to show of hands, does anybody remember Crazy Eddie? Show of hands. Yeah. Okay, a lot of you. Because I grew up in Boston, and I think we had Crazy Eddies there as well. But we also had Jordan's Furniture. Anybody from Boston? Anybody? No? Just a Jordan Furniture. It's like take Main Street to Moody Street. Remember that? Oh my God! Every time it was always. Anyway. Real quick, I just want to read one more of these secrets. This one was kind of disturbing. Just prepare yourselves. There's quite a few about sex that I'm not going to read, but this one was particularly disturbing, especially here in Marin. I am a Republican. All right, let's bring our next storyteller up. Oh, by the way, there's Crazy Eddie. Okay, let's bring up Rich. Rich does not have his flute with him tonight, I'm sorry to say, but he is in a book. All right, come on up, Rich. Yeah. Let's make this happen. Please do.
All right. So sometimes it really matters, more than you can know at the time, whether you turn left or whether you turn right. Back in 1999, I was getting a teaching credential at San Francisco State University, and I was living about a block from the beach in the Sunset District. And one very sunny spring morning, I was walking down 48th Avenue, making my way to class, and I got to Judah Street. And to the left was my bus stop and a promise of punctuality. And to the right was the ocean, and also a strange calling, an invisible voice saying, "You need to come be with me." And if you've heard any of my stories before with bears and ravens and such, you know that I try to heed those voices when I hear them. So wistfully, goodbye to punctuality, and I turned right. And I crossed the great highway, took about 20 steps through the sand, moving towards the ocean, and there he was, all 7 feet of him. A dead brown pelican laying belly up with his wings outstretched, looking like he was basking in hadn't been dead for very long, and I had never seen anything quite like that. So I knew the who. This is who called me over here, but I didn't know the what. I didn't know the why. So I decided just to sit beside him for as long as it took for me to understand why that pelican called me over. So I sat right next to it, and for a while I just rested my hand on its feathery chest. And I stroked his bill for a while and brushed some of the sand off of his wings. And I waited, and I waited. And my eyes drifted over to the mid-sized shorebirds, the western gulls, the marble godwits. And they were all just standing there. And it reminded me of the part of myself that just waits around for something to happen. And then over on the other side were the urgent little birds, the sanderlings and the plovers doing their race walking, and they reminded me of the part that can get frantic and dash all around. And then from the right came a pelican, gliding. It never even flapped its wings. It just glided until it saw something it wanted. It saw something it needed. And it dove like a stone, nose first, into the ocean with a splash. And it came up with a fish. And right then I knew, this is it. This is it. This is why I'm here. A poem came fully formed, and that usually doesn't happen to me. And the last lines were a question, the pelican's message. And the last lines of the poem are, when did you last soar and then crash anywhere headlong with desire? And I jumped up and I thanked the bird, this is it, and I hurried off to class. The next day, I ran into my friend Vicky, who plays cello for the San Francisco Opera. And I showed her the poem that I picked out on my Smith Corona-Matic electric typewriter. This was the previous century. And Vicky took the poem and she read it and she looked at it for a long time. She looked at it like an artist who'd spent her whole life extracting feeling from marks on a page. And then she just said, would it be okay if I kept this? And I said, sure. And I thought no more about it. Flash forward a year and a half, cut to very same Vicky, this statuesque woman, trained classically, but with this enduring Texan drawl. And she came up to me and she was looking a little sheepish, a little apologetic. And she said, I hope it's okay what I did. And that definitely got my interest. And she said, Rich, I hope it's okay. You gave me that poem a long time ago, and I shared it with a forum of composers, and one of them took a liking to it, and he turned it into a vocal chamber piece. And he called it The Pelican, and the lyrics, that's your poem. And I was kind of stunned, wondering, is this a practical joke? And she kept going. She said, and it debuts in 2 weeks. And we'd like you to come down to the Opera House and watch us rehearse. So 2 days later, I'm walking through parts of the Opera House that as a civilian I've never seen before. And I get to a rehearsal room, and there's the little ensemble. There's Lawrence, the composer, and he's at the piano. And there's Vicky straddling her cello, and there's a man named Phil on clarinet, and a woman named Carla on the violin. And the soprano, whose name was Laura, who had come up from Los Angeles to sing The Pelican. And when they started to play, honestly, I got dizzy, and it was like I was swooning. And before I could even begin to process any of this, it was performance day. And some of you might recall, the venue was the old, still there, but Noe Valley Ministry. There aren't a lot of concerts there anymore, but it was full. There were about 200 people there, and I was sitting in the front row. And about 6 or 7 pieces debuted, and then they got to The Pelican. And it started with deep, low swell, the bass notes of the piano joined with the cello. And in that sound, I could feel the ancient vastness of the ocean. And then the clarinet came in and the violin, and in that I could see the bright blue sky and all those birds on the shore. And then Laura, the soprano, opened her mouth. Out soared my words, the pelican's words, really. And then a wave of emotion washed over me because I could feel it. I could feel the unbroken flow from that bird on the beach a year and a half earlier, whispering to my heart, and my heart putting that into a poem, and that poem going into Vicky's heart, and then it going into Lawrence's heart, and then it went into the fingers of the string players and the breath of the woodwinds, and then it came out a song of the snow. And I turned around, and most of the people in the audience had their eyes closed and a little Buddha half smile. And there it was, the unbroken flow, going from the pelican on the beach to this concert hall and to these 200 hearts. And that unbroken flow continues into today, because just last week, after 30 years, I released my first book of poems and stories. And it's titled The Pelican, because of the story I just told you. And it's my hope that that unbroken flow will continue from that bird on the beach now to the hearts of anyone who reads that poem in here. And finally, right here, right now, the message goes from the pelican into your hearts with that question: when did you last soar and then crash anywhere headlong with desire? Thank you. Last note, I actually have a recording of what they played 26 years ago, so if ever you want to hear that, talk to me and I'll get it to you somehow.
Thank you. Amazing. Rich, everybody. That's Rich. Amazing. Oh, yeah, wow. So amazing. We have some talented people that come tell stories here. And you too can tell a story here. Everybody, at some point in time, think about your lives, think about stories, and I help you. We sit there, we talk before the story. We have a a Zoom call with me, and we work through your story to make sure that we can sort of get you ready for prime time. And this is what you see, some amazing stories that you've seen here tonight. All right, so let's give one more big hand for Rich, because that's what an amazing thing. And we're going to go ahead and have our next storyteller. We have Colleen coming up, everybody. Colleen, everybody.
Okay. All right. How does this work? Here? There we go. Are we good here? Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. In my late 20s, I worked in a garment factory, and many of the employees spoke Spanish, so I had the bright idea that if I watched the TV news every night in Spanish, my comprehension would improve and my job would get easier. So I'm doing just that one night late, and I'm on my sofa, lying down, and I fall asleep. And the sound of music starts to tickle my ears. I hear percussion, I hear horns, I hear timbales, the delicious sound of salsa music. And so I'm immediately up, and I see on screen dancers are twirling and lights and graphics, and I hear the voiceover. Viernes y sábado, la música salsa. It's a commercial for a salsa club. And I'm watching, and then suddenly I see myself in the commercial. And I shake my head and I think, wait, what? What's happening here? I'm confused. Am I dreaming? Well, I wasn't dreaming. Because back then, salsa dancing was a big part of my life. A handful of years before that, a friend of mine who knew I was sad and lonely after calling off a wedding, as a tonic, she suggested we go salsa dancing. So I walked into that club and into another reality. The live band, the lights, the partner dancing, it was intoxicating. I was captivated. And as the only gringa in the club, I had many willing instructors. And by the end of the night, I got the gist and I could follow a lead. Well, it was so fantastic because it got me out of my head. And pounding hearts, rhythmic hips, it was like safe sex, which was just what I needed back then. And that night proved to be a gateway drug. I was addicted. So there was Colleen before salsa. Sensible, cautious, home by 11, a Girl Scout. And there was Colina after salsa. Sexy dance clothes. My night started at 11. I was out 2 or 3 nights a week. And this went on for years. I knew what clubs to go to on what night, and we're talking the late 1980s, people, okay? So I thought nothing of going into sketch neighborhoods by myself to get to the latest club and then going through a metal detector to get to the dance floor. I was crazy. These were my dangerous years. But after dancing 2 or 3 years, I had also developed standards, and I wouldn't dance with just anyone. I sought out skilled, generous, and sensitive partners. So one night, I'm at a club, and they announce a dance contest, and I scan the crowd looking for my regulars, and I see the skilled, generous, and sensitive Augustine. And he and I agree to enter the dance contest. Well, the long and the short of it is, Augustine and I won the contest along with 7 other pairs. And our prize was to be the onstage dancers during a televised Latin music festival called Fiesta del Sol. The highlight, dancing on stage with the lion of salsa, the Venezuelan legend, Oscar de Leon, while he played his set. Okay, peak experience. So back to the sofa, and I'm watching myself in the commercial. The only thing that made sense to me was that the television studio that had sponsored the dance contest and had televised the festival had sold footage of me thinking the gringa will never see it. And I thought, okay, well, I guess it will make a great story one day. And I thought, okay, whatever. But whatever turned into what the hell. Because after that commercial aired, and that aired 2 or 3 or 4 times a night, when I would walk into work, into that factory, and through the cutting room floor, all the production cutters, 20 or 30 of them, all men, started in with the cat calling and the clicking and the whistling, and this went on and on and on. And I started feeling so exposed and uncomfortable. And my persona salsera Colina was now factory floor gossip. And as it went on, I thought that my authority in the design room was in jeopardy. So around this time, I started dating a man named Jason. And I ranted to Jason, and I explained the whole story. And he said to me, well, did you sign a waiver? And I hadn't signed a waiver. And he said, well, that's not right. They can't do that. We are going to make them pay. So, so he said, I'm going to call a lawyer friend of mine, and he's going to write a strongly worded letter to the television station, and we agreed that anything we got out of it, we would blow it on a weekend away. A couple of months go by. I get a letter in the mail from the lawyer, and I open the envelope, and I have a check for $666.66. And I cashed that check, and we took our mad money down to Orange County, and we had a great weekend, including a day at Disneyland. And it was so extravagant and so memorable, it turbocharged our relationship. Salsa music, it will always move me. I hear joy, and I hear celebration, and I hear life. Winning a dance contest, fantastic. But my real prize is that my skilled, generous, and sensitive partner, Jason, became my husband. And in 3 days, we are celebrating our 35th wedding anniversary. And to celebrate, we might just do a bit of salsa dancing. If we can stay up that late, and his back doesn't hurt, and my knee isn't bothering me, and my shoulder isn't stiff. That's it.
There you are. There's the is that it? Can you tell us?
Yeah, so there we are at Disneyland. And then for my 40th birthday, he threw me a salsa party to celebrate. Dancing together. And he learned how to salsa dance for me.
So nice. Big hand for Colleen, everybody. All right. I'm just going to read one more secret, and then we're going to bring our last storyteller up for tonight. Again, I didn't write this. I kissed Tommy Orlando after the prom. All right. Let's have our last storyteller tonight. It's going to be Mimi. Bring it up for Mimi. Woo!
WWF entrance.
Yeah.
Trying to remember how it starts. Oh, good words. I grew up in a big family, and I learned early on you got to earn your keep. Nothing is for free. Right? If someone gives you a gift, if someone gives you that last slice of pizza, you better believe the next time that there's a slice of pizza left in that box, they're going to be looking at you, expecting you to give it back to them. I hated that feeling. I hated that feeling of debt. After 10 years of this on and off tragic marriage, it finally ended. My sister had flown out and had rented an Airbnb and tried to take care of me and console me. I was already feeling so demoralized and beaten down and so in debt to her. I couldn't imagine how to ever even repay that. But to clean up all the mess of a 10-year relationship was going to take me longer than 2 weeks. And so I had to stay in Idaho for a little bit longer, and I didn't know what to do. I looked at places to rent, and it was all out of my budget for myself and my little dog. On the last day, my sister looked at me and said, I could reach out to Emma. My sister Abby had met Emma 4 years prior at a museum convention. They both worked in museums and loved conservation, and Loved all the nerdy stuff of who painted what and who made that frame and the reflection of the glass. They cordially sent emails back and forth over 4 years, but I would best call their relationship an acquaintance. And she hadn't seen her more than that one time at that conference 4 years ago, until about 2 months earlier, when she'd remembered that her and her husband, John, had moved to Boise, and they had met up for about a 2-hour trip to the museum there. I looked at her and I was like, oh my God, no. Like that is crazy. I don't know this person, you don't know this person, but I had nothing else to go on. I'd given up, and I said, why not? She texted, Emma, must have been 5 lines. I imagine it saying something like, my sister needs help. Can she stay with you for 2 weeks? And she has a dog. It couldn't have been longer than 2 minutes, and the phone lights up. It was Emma. And she wrote back 2 words, of course. Now, I consider myself a pretty generous and nice person, but I don't think the 2 words out of my mouth, if someone reached out to me who was an acquaintance and said, hey, can you take my family member of whom you do not know after they've left a terrible 10-year relationship into your home for 2 weeks? I probably wouldn't have said, of course. The next day we met up at the dog park to make sure our dogs got along well. And I moved in. I spent the whole first week earning my keep, washing dishes, going food shopping. I must have wiped every wall, every counter too many times. They would come home after their day of work and they would watch me sorting my piles, resorting, moving one pile of rocks, I collect rocks, into other piles of rocks, because there are good rocks and bad rocks. And I needed to figure how to pare down my entire life to fit into my car to drive back across country. I'd gone so far as to take it upon myself in replacing items in their house, thinking that they needed to be a little updated. I went to stores and bought them new bath mats, just tossing out their old ones without even asking. Emma nicely on about in the first week said to me unceremoniously, you don't owe us anything. It was super uncomfortable. I didn't know these people at all. They'd opened me into their homes. I slept in their guest bedroom. They took care of me crying on the couch. And then something came over me. I realized that I was given this opportunity. I had spent the whole first week of that stay focusing so much on how I could pay off this debt that I couldn't even think about how to move forward or what to even start healing. And I got to start working on things and coming up with stuff. And I wish I could tell you that I'm a changed lady up here. And if some random acquaintance reached out to me and said, hey, I know this person, can they stay on your old couch for 2 weeks? I'd say, of course. However, my sister reached out 2 years ago. She was suffering from a great depression, and she needed a place to heal. She asked if she could stay for 6 months in my studio. And without a second thought, I knew the words to say. Because some gifts are too big to pay back, that you can only simply pay them forward.
Nailed it. Nailed it. That's Mimi. Oh wait, this is Mimi. Are these the people? Those are the people, right? Yeah, that's Emma and John. Emma and John. Give it up for Mimi and Emma and John. Okay, we did it. We did our 23rd show, everybody. That's right. So, next month, June 19th, we're having a best of show. We're going to have some amazing storytellers come back and tell some of their best stories. I don't know if everybody's in town at that time. Some people who would love to be in town may not be in town for the event, but we are going to do it. June 19th, best of. You saw the stories here tonight. We had everything from funny to serious to heartwarming. It's so wonderful. You have stories. Everybody has stories. Sign up for the mailing list. Talk to me. Let's do this. All right? Thank you, everybody. I'm Gary. Have a good night.